Good afternoon. My name is Bahman Yazdanfar, and this is Voters Echo. Today is June the 16th, 2015. And before we introduce our guest for today, a couple things I have to mention for our new viewers who don't or haven't seen this show rather. This show is conducted by me. I am not being paid by anyone. I am not being ordered by any union or any political party. It is completely independent, and I am putting my own time and resources. The time for this show is contributed by Dr. James Sears. The time that he had with that channel studio, he gave it to me graciously, and I thank him as well. And without further ado, let's bring you or introduce to you the two guests that you have to find it by yourself. I let them to introduce themselves. Let's start with Paul.
I'm Paul Bell. I ran in Don Valley East in the last municipal. I continue to be involved, and I do intend to run again in 2018. I'm so pleased to be back on your show. Congratulations on your new show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I watched your episode last week with Greg Vesna as your first guest. Really articulate guy, really bright guy. Don't always see eye to eye on issues with him, but absolutely adore him. I'm glad he's on the planet. I'm glad you're on the planet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and thank you you're in the planet. Because we need people like you. Otherwise, if we rely on other people to do the job for us, we are doomed. And
Baham, thank
John.
you very much for thank you very much for having me on your new show. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, you two planetary types. My name is John Papadakis, former Easter Councillor, Deputy Mayor, currently practicing paralegal. I practice law, dealing with a number of issues, including AMPS, administrative monetary penalties, which is a very bad thing. Number of things, actually, Paul, a few things that are coming up. But again, thank you for having me on your show, and congratulations. It's important that the people of our community actually listen to unbiased, well, somewhat unbiased media, that it's not owned by the 5% of the multinational corporations. And hopefully people will listen, because our city, our province, and our country is in dire straits.
Thank you, and by the way, honor is mine that you accepted the show, my invitation.
I'm just looking for that pizza and ice cream afterwards.
well, I can't promise that one, but we will talk about that later. You mentioned AMPS.
What do you mean you will talk about that later? I thought that was part of the
Well, we don't have anything in writing, you know. You have to go to the office of Premier to find this kind of the thing free of charge.
I should have signed that or read that disclosure a little more closely.
You mentioned something about AMPS. Let's put it for a few minutes aside. I want to ask both of you, after the last last year,
Can we define AMPS first?
We will. After last year's, I call it disgraceful election that we had.
It was democratic.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
It was democratic.
Well,
no, it wasn't.
Stuff in ballot boxes.
We could say that, but we don't want to argue on that.
Look on you.
It's already passed. But I want to know from both of you, leading to AMPS and similar, like a sell off the hydro and all of that.
Bill 91.
What was built up? Because after the, for instance, let's say in the provincial election, this government had some sort of the fiasco with the Sudbury, and still they can continue to do whatever they want to do. Now,
There were 3, 4 OPP and active investigations currently.
These people are like a Teflon.
Yeah.
They don't, nothing stick to them. They come, they had all of those
deleted emails that were our property.
Hydro, Orange, Mars, name it, and yet they get the majority, and they continue what they do. So let's start with you. How do they get there? And then you follow him and tell me, do you agree with him or not?
Okay.
And then we continue.
Are you talking about the federal, or sorry, the provincial or the municipal?
We are provincial and municipal becoming very
the two disasters that
intertwined.
happened last
So
year.
If there is no provincial,
I already agree with John, by the way, that the provincial and the municipal have become too closely tied, too closely related. There are too many issues that are provincially driven And we'll get into that in AMPS
Yeah.
with
Yes.
regard to who benefits
Yeah.
from it. It's a cui bono, and the municipality benefits, but it's the cities who went to the province saying we need some money. The province said we're bankrupt, but here's what we can do for you. Here's an opportunity for you to raise some money. So we'll pass some legislation that will help you raise some money because we don't have any. And now they're selling hydro.
Well, the same thing. You're in the paralegal business. You know the issue of these parking tickets that started a few years back, and all of those officers, the collection is administered by the province, even though it is the municipality. What is your take on that?
Well, let's back up a little
Okay.
bit first. The previous first was the provincial election in the spring of 2014.
June, yes.
Yeah.
When we had to take a break from our municipal campaigns.
Which, first of all,
Yeah.
they should not be together in the same year.
Thank you.
Okay. Second, the provincial election was basically hijacked, and it's amazing how nobody will admit they voted Liberal now. Okay, during that provincial election, but the unions are to blame. The self-interest groups that supported the Liberals are to blame.
Third party.
They spent money, they did hatchet jobs on everyone else, and now they're crying the blues. We do not have a democratic electoral system in this province anymore. It's gone.
You don't have it in country.
Well, okay, but we're dealing provincial,
Yeah.
municipal.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll be
It
challenging
was
that.
a very unbalanced, biased provincial election. It brought in one of the most, and I'm going to say it because, we live in a country where people are afraid to speak and tell the truth, and it's time to speak up because the silence of this province and this city is deafening. Okay? This provincial government is the worst provincial government we've ever had in history. By far, far worse than the Harris government. At least he did what he said he was going to do. Okay? Second, the amount of corruption, thievery, incompetence, and mismanagement is mind-boggling. Any other country in the world, these people would have been thrown out with pitchforks and chains. Not here. Here you don't get prison here for stealing from the taxpayers, you get a pension. Something very wrong with that. Then we have this very, very biased, in my opinion, questionable provincial election. Then we go to the municipal, a system of megacity, which ironically, again, I brought up all these issues during the municipal election.
I remember.
And nobody listened. I said the system is flawed. When the councillor that I was running against, 6 weeks before, can spend thousands and thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money to produce a flyer about how wonderful she was and all the stuff she didn't do for her constituency, okay, that's something wrong there. When her staff was out knocking on doors on the taxpayers' dollars, when she was out knocking on doors on the taxpayer dollars, something's wrong there. It's a biased system. It's geared for the incumbent, and there's something wrong. When an incumbent declares themselves a candidate, they're cut off from the public purse. Also, the mayoral campaigns. Let's talk truth here, Mr. Tory. Your whole campaign team was Premier Wynn's staff and her campaign organizers. You, sir, have a leash tied to the Liberal cabinet ministers and the Premier's office. You cannot make real decisions for the City of Toronto because you are owned by the province of Ontario. And that, sir, is disgraceful. Okay?
Actually,
but the problem I
he lost
blame...
to Catherine Wynne his seat.
Of course he did. But he won the mayoral because it was all these Liberal campaign people working for him. But the biggest problem here is the voters. I'm sorry, you got to bear responsibility for what you, the voter, did to this province and this city. The reality of it is you shut your brains off when the election time comes, you don't pay attention, and you listen to the biased media. Something's wrong here, and it won't last.
With respect to the biased media, I quite understand where John's coming from in one regard. Not quite as vehemently, but it was disturbing to me every Thursday morning when I woke up and I was running against an incumbent who was on a popular morning show on radio, on commercial radio, and numerous calls and emails to that station couldn't land me 2 minutes of airtime. And every Thursday, that incumbent from February
not biased,
till
you mean?
September.
Did you
No, I'm agreeing that it,
Oh, you agree,
that
okay.
it is biased.
Yeah.
But that's the lay of the land. You know that when you sign on. We saw out of 44 wards, one incumbent defeated in the last election. And we're going to see it again if we don't have an informed, engaged public. That is the problem, and it really is about an informed, engaged public. This is the lay of the land. We're not going to change it. We talk about term limits. However, I flip-flopped on that. I was in favor of term limits until I considered that it's undemocratic to tell somebody who wants to vote for a candidate who wants to run again that you can't vote for that candidate and they can't sit there. I have a problem
There is a
with
caveat on that. If you have a even playing ground for all candidates.
We do not have that.
So
we don't
if
have
you
anything
don't have
remotely,
really,
we
that
don't,
is
we don't
Exactly.
have
So
anything
the
remotely
incumbent-
resembling that. Lately, we've apparently we're going to introduce this ranked balloting system. I strongly oppose that. I think it's silly because in 10 months of knocking on doors,
Which is another silly
in
thing.
the last election, the Ford factor, I'll account for the fact that knocking on doors, the first most asked question was, who do you support for mayor?
Yeah, really.
It's not germane when you're talking about a council race because whether it's Tory or Chow or Ford, I'm going to work with whomever emerges as mayor as a councillor. And the second most asked question was, who is the sitting councillor? To ask the same person who doesn't know who their sitting councillor is to pick in order 3 candidates
Isn't that
when they've
something?
never heard of any
Well,
of us.
well, in the old,
is,
in
not
old
productive.
Roman, they used to have certain people or give the certain people the privilege of voting based on their
called citizens.
status.
Yeah,
status. I'm not saying that it has to be done here. What I'm saying is informing the citizens. Isn't it the part of the elections body?
But it's biased.
It's up to
okay?
people to
It's
inform
very biased.
themselves.
Yes.
If you don't inform yourself,
Well,
you're
you
going to get the
cannot go
government
with
that
the
you get.
fork after people and say one by one. It's very time
Come on,
consuming.
come on, guys.
Who
When
would do
we-
such a thing? Why would we do such a thing? You get the government you deserve. Now, John and I both lost our respective elections, but that doesn't mean we had a right to win. We weren't entitled to a victory.
No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying, if you want to deal with the mass, which by the way, 50% of that doesn't want
You
to
get
live,
out there and
to
you knock
live
on more
home.
doors. Come on, you get out there, you knock on more doors, you do your level best, you fight it how it is, and if you get there, then you try to change the system so that it can be more transparent. Because transparent is something that Kathleen Wynne ran on, and now Bill 91, the Building Ontario
C91, yeah.
Secret Act,
Yeah.
Building Ontario
Yes,
Act, they're
omnibus.
calling it.
It is omnibus.
And what it does is it now means that the Attorney General and the Ombudsman can no longer pursue claims against fraudulent or allegedly fraudulent hydro bills. Now this
That's
is a
a
very
topic in
serious
itself.
problem. They've got a fire sale going on with
It's not
Hydro
fire
One.
sale. It's an act of treason.
I think people ordinary.
It's darn close, isn't it, John?
I think ordinary.
I'll fall short of calling it that literally.
It's not
but
false short. It's not. Paul, it is an act of treason. Let's call a spade here. The world situation is extremely volatile, unstable, and downright dangerous. Okay?
Agreed.
There are certain things nations need to do. One of them is secure your infrastructure. Well, my God, we sold the wheat board to the Saudis.
Well, the wheat board had some issues of its own. They
Okay,
weren't.
but we sold the wheat board to the Saudis.
Oil to
The land of
Chinese.
terrorism.
Yeah.
Or oil to Chinese. Like, hello?
Well,
you do
and
not
not to
sell
mention the
your-
property that we're selling to
Right.
foreign interests.
Yeah. Right, you do
In
not
countries
sell-
like Australia, if you own property in Australia, you have to be a resident. If you leave Australia, you have to alienate that property.
Oh, you mean like all the condo disasters that we're going to
That's
have? Or
exactly-
where all
thank
the
you.
buildings
That's exactly
that
what I
people
was
are buying
talking
up
about.
and letting them rot. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, remember June 16th, 2015, because all those crappy buildings that are being built up there, when they start to fall apart, you're paying for them. Let's go
course.
back. Let's go
Okay.
back to the municipal.
Okay,
now.
let's
Let's
get
go
to
back
the-
to the
I'm
municipal.
coming
Since
back.
they got elected, okay.
Mhm.
Since they got elected, let's do the sheet here.
Okay.
$150 million scam in transit.
Okay.
$30 million overrun in Nathan Phillips Square. Hundreds of millions of dollars in costs of Union Station.
Union Station,
Millions and millions
now
of
we're
dollars.
over 800,000
Right.
and we're 2
Pan
years
Am.
behind.
Millions and
2
millions.
years.
Well, I haven't even got the Pan Am yet. So all these hundreds of millions of dollars, questionable contracts, corrupt contractors, corrupt staff, corrupt everything. Where's John Tory?
Oh,
Where are the councillors to launch an investigation into the criminality of the thievery of our money? If you at home had a contractor that said, I'm going to fix your house for $10,000, contractor comes back and says, I need 100,000, you're going to say, go to hell. You're going to fight them, you're going to take them to court. But John Tory's not doing that. Not one of those lying councillors is doing anything about it because they don't care about your money.
Well, John Tory was increasing the cost of the office of the mayor
Of course
for
he is.
$300,000.
John Tory also increased enforcement of all these ridiculous little bylaws. You have no idea what he's been doing there quietly to raise money.
He's only one vote on council. And this is what's so important for people to understand that we heard in the last election,
But
during
they
the last
didn't
term.
play the same game with the Rockford.
Oh, of course not.
One
Of course
vote
not.
per council.
No, absolutely.
Everything
That's
was
what I
his
find so
responsibility. So if it is good for good, it should be good for Gander.
That's where I was going. Isn't it ironic that when Ford was mayor, it was one vote on council, and he's only one vote on council. And when he accomplished something, it was very easy to dismiss that.
Yeah.
The fact that the TTC will never be able to go on strike again because they're now an essential service. That's akin to terrorism, to have the TTC go on strike. That cripples the entire city. That'll never happen again. It was Rob Ford who did that.
Well, last week it was.
Credit where it's due. The privatization of garbage west of Yonge Street has been a success.
Oh, but then
there were some
for John
hiccups.
Tory.
But we'll never give Rob credit for these things.
No,
And
the whole point it comes back to the media and the influence of the media over overall education of
Is
the
John
public.
Tory still on the board of directors at Rogers?
Yes.
I believe so.
Does he still own $5 million worth of shares in Rogers
Conflict of
Communications?
interest, but that's okay.
Oh, he went to that.
Did they
to
sole
that,
source?
music thing in Taylor,
Yeah,
and
where-
his son is in charge of
Did
that.
they
Where's the
sole
media?
source Wi-Fi at City Hall?
Yeah, of course they did. Where's the media? Where's the hordes of media? Where's all the protesters camping out in front of his
Now,
office?
I don't have a problem personally with John Tory, but I have a problem with at least the optics of that, the perception that there could be a conflict of interest, and a very serious one. This isn't about Deco printing a couple of stickers for parking. This is a big damn deal. And it's a perception that needs to be addressed, and the fact that the media isn't addressing it, and that we have a mayor right now who is...
But media is biased. I mean, it's liberal media. He is liberal.
Well, they best get over it because...
he claims to be conservative, but really, I don't
Well,
believe so.
that's not any concern of any of ours.
Yeah.
But it's indicative of the big problem, which I've been trying to say for years now. The system we have at City Hall does not work. We need to change it. You've got 44 fiefdoms, okay? Everyone does their own thing, and even when I was on council, do you think I cared what the mayor said? You're one vote, buddy. I don't care what you say, right? We need to change that. We need a new system.
Strong mayor system. Actually, Doug
Well,
Ford called
I
for that,
believe
and,
as much. Well, I've been pushing.
Doug stumbled from time to
Sure
time.
he did,
but he was right on
but
that.
I've been talking about, as much as I can't stand the party system, because especially the British illusion of a democracy system, because British parliamentary system is not a democracy.
You got a way of phrasing things.
Well, it's feudalism disguised as
Well,
democracy.
I think it is relatively good, providing the
No, it isn't.
party politic doesn't interfere.
It does.
Oh,
when a government can, when a party can take over a country, a province, with 30% of the vote, that's not democracy.
Absolute power corrupts.
Yeah,
That's
that
right.
is the party
So
thing,
we
yeah.
need to bring in a municipal party system legislated by the provincial government. And by the way, Madam Wynne, you can't say no. It's a constitutional issue. It already exists in British Columbia and Quebec, so you can't say no. At least with a
Well, I don't
municipal
think
party
she-
system.
I don't think she would. I think she'd be quite comfortable watching
Oh, no.
Toronto go all liberal.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, no, there's
Nobody
a
will
strong
admit
NDP
there
contingent.
publicly they voted liberals. Okay. We need to bring that
We
in.
should put the picture of anyone who
Yeah,
voted whatever.
yeah. Well,
we
it's
should,
amazing.
we should we should get rid of the secret ballot then.
Go to a pub and ask somebody, did you vote for the Liberals? No, I didn't vote. Well, then how did they get in? Divine intervention? I don't think so. We need to bring it in. I don't believe in it, but we need to bring it in. At least that way, if I'm leader of a party and I say, we're going to build subways, we're going to build them from here to here, and that's the end of it, then I have 23 votes on council. It's passed. It's finished. We're done. Now you got McConnell and all these other yayas that want us to ride bicycles in January. It's hard to take a person to a hospital on the back of a bicycle on one of those rickshaws, you know? So get over it.
Have they not
We
banned
live
the
in a
rickshaw?
mud pit.
I think the rickshaw actually has
Look-
been banned for
Yeah, well,
you know,
look around the
reasonable-
world.
No,
What's going on?
Even they passed a vote on the hybrid solution of the.
Oh,
but they
all
said,
right.
"Oh, the war is not over."
Exactly. I was
I
just
hope
leading
it's not
up to
over.
that. The
I
war
hope
is
it's not
over.
over. I don't want it to be over. What I want to see happen, it costs $10 million a year to maintain the Gardner.
No,
we
no.
have other priorities that we should be dealing with before we
Paul,
tear
the
down.
question
We have a
is-
We're not
40-year
tearing down.
infrastructure
The question. I'm
Bauman,
not-
we have a 40-year infrastructure deficit in the city of Toronto. And the way to address it is not to make the first priority tearing down something we already have.
yeah, really.
Okay, but well, my point was not the breach. My point was, even they don't respect their own democratically
No, they don't.
president.
Well, no, democracy only exists when their side wins.
Yes,
Right, right.
That is why.
So we need a new system of governance because Toronto is failing. Plus, we have a provincial government who is nothing but an absolute liability to Toronto. They are harmful to our city, and we'd be better off without them.
Bill, who?
The province of Ontario.
Oh, of course.
We need to get rid of them.
Who wants that?
We need to control our own hydro.
we
We
better off
need to
with-
control our own resources. Where PEI is a province of 430,000 people.
We have 4 million
We're a
people.
city of 5 million people.
But
The
that
audacity
said,
of it.
Historically, Toronto is the trading post. From, well,
Listen, it's like a Hong Kong.
settlers.
We put it in a.
Well, that's been
Yeah.
always my
Yeah.
assertion is that we're turning downtown Toronto into Hong Kong.
Yeah.
We're ghettoizing Scarborough. But I'll go wider than that and talk about Ontario. And with regard to Upper Canada, we have always been historically a trading post. This is where you take your goods to market. And now what we're doing by creating all these condos and then at the same time taking vehicles away so we don't have any industry, we don't have the branch plants, we don't have the offices of the corporations any longer coming to Toronto because we don't want them here. We don't want jets at
The
Billy
footstep
Bishop.
of the.
Guys,
Yeah, so what we're going to see is all of these head offices and branch plants moving outside of Toronto. We're going to see a bunch of residents, a bunch of dead condos empty, and
no, you're going
no
to have
industry.
high-rise slums downtown. Guys, let's
absolutely,
take it one step
absolutely,
further. I
absolutely.
challenge the councillors on this.
In the fullness of time, we're going to see ourselves turn into Detroit, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It is a
That-
denial.
that- that
I
is-
challenge the councillors. They're talking about bringing jobs to Toronto. I go, okay, can I ask you guys a question? Our industrial areas, because of your narrow-mindedness, short-sightedness, and literally incompetence that many of you shouldn't even be on council, you've turned our industrial areas into churches, condos, and God knows what else. Where are you going to put all these jobs, allegedly, that you want to bring back to the city? What, are you going to open up a manufacturing plant at Yonge and Bloor?
They keep closing it.
No, but
Even in province ways.
but the industrial areas of our city are disappearing because of lack of vision, lack of foresight, and lack of confidence.
And
How
lack
do you
of-
bring business back? How do you bring jobs back to the city when you've lost your industrial area?
Well,
Where are you going to put them?
Not to mention the fact that we're watching all of the infrastructure development in the city, and the Gardner is evidence of this. The priority is always on the core. We're not focusing on what we need to do, the Shepherd line, the Scarborough line, so that you'll find developers
They're
building
still
outward.
there doing a
This-
study.
Well, yeah. Please.
Yeah, they're studying the study. To
No,
do a study
no,
of
the
who's
studies
doing
have
the
been
study,
done.
to have that study done.
The environmental assessments have been done. The Shepherd line should be underground to meet the Scarborough line. Development will follow. You'll find that development outward will prevent Scarborough and North York from becoming riddled with poverty neighborhoods. Instead, this whole business tearing down the Gardner, making that somehow a priority, or the eastern section of the Gardner to do this hybrid nonsense, is all about Portland's development. It's all about getting that
Bingo.
Section 37 money, those contributions from the eastern portion, because the western there was never any real chance that the western part of the Gardner was going to be taken down because it's already been developed. That Section 37 contribution money has already been spent. They don't really care. That was just a dog and pony show.
So it is the void that they can
This is
they
about
can fill it
Portland's
up with
development, and this is about two things. Section 37 contribution money from developers who have wheelbarrows full of money, and it's about handing out lucrative contracts
Of course,
to build
that is-
this hybrid nonsense that is not a priority. For 10 million a year, we can put some nets up, we can maintain the Gardner. We're 40 years behind in infrastructure spending in this city.
But we have
We
emergency.
can afford to spend 10
we have
years.
emergency.
This is the GTA.
Oh, Tim Hortons is open. You're okay.
This is the GTA. We need to focus. We need to prioritize. We need a master plan, not a 4-year plan.
Okay.
No, yeah, let's talk the truth about the Portlands, okay? Paul's right. Let's talk the truth about he's right about the development, but even there's corruption that stinks. And where's John Tory? Pinewood Studios has what I believe an illegal deal. The City of Toronto, people don't know this. City of Toronto has spent almost $100 million financing a studio known as Pinewoods, okay?
The one,
Which is great.
The one
At the waterfront.
The waterfront.
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
there's several film studios, and by the way, Toronto's booming with the movie industry. And I like to say that back in the 80s, I helped bring the movie industry
You
to Toronto.
were actually in a movie.
I was in many movies. Now,
Yeah, but you played a Goomba kind of guy.
yeah, you saw that one.
Yeah, I
Yeah, okay. Figures, they always show that one.
Are you upset because you were not part of that?
No, what I'm on the contrary, I support
John's
the film
actually pretty
industry.
shy about that.
No, I'm
For a
not.
guy who's not terribly shy, you're pretty.
Listen,
I don't hear you bragging about
okay,
that.
it was a show on Top Cops. I played one of the criminals, me and my cousin Vinny. We did this robbery, right? And I'm
You
sitting there
don't
trying.
look like criminal.
Listen, they
Did-
put me in vinyl for
Why
God's
didn't-
sakes.
why-
It was in the 70s.
Why didn't
I
go
had
to
an
City
open
Hall?
shirt.
Why didn't go to City Hall? They could recruit in 5 minutes.
Listen, listen. I've been thinking about getting into organized crime, but I don't know whether to go into government or the private sector. Pinewood Studios has got this illegal deal. The city's financing it. Yet, and they even got clause that says nobody else can build studios there. We've got a booming film industry, and we've got a corrupt deal with a corrupt organization, and we can't even build and expand our film studios to create jobs. Where's Mr. Tory? Where's Councillor Fletcher? Where's St. Pam of McConnell?
Well,
Where are all these people?
She's in tears that the
So
Gardner.
they're
is
one
bored
block
out
south of
green
us.
space.
Yeah, but you see, here's the problem, gentlemen, and we're doing it right now. What we're doing is we're discussing and arguing about the symptoms and not addressing the causes.
We are getting to that very soon. You mentioned a couple of times the issue of the bridge and the cars and this and that, and it's a good segue to get to this AMPS thing.
Huh.
That is really affects every single person drivers in
Oh, it's
this
beyond that. I
province.
mean, we saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
Matlow was going on about reducing speed limits on side streets.
Unbelievable.
When in fact, traffic fatalities, more than 90% of them with pedestrians happen on
In the main street.
on
Main-
arterial roads,
Yeah. The
which
background
aren't
on that.
affected.
Yeah.
Well, they're talking about reducing speed limits to 30 kilometers per hour. which is-
30 kilometers an hour.
I
I want to
I can skate faster than that.
Ladies in the
I want to
schools.
present to you before you go about the details of the
But-
AMPS.
but-
The more sinister way that I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it not from perspective of a driver, I'm perspective of the citizen. If this happens, which is happening, and they take the right of a citizen from facing his accusers or her accusers,
habeas corpus.
then
It used to be
isn't
called
isn't
habeas
it?
corpus. And here we are on the anniversary, the 800th anniversary.
let
of
me
the Magna
let
Carta.
me let me get to the bottom of the point, and then you can go ahead. Isn't it a slippery slope that
course
6
it
months
is.
down the road, another
already seen this.
misdemeanor or
It's
crime?
already happening.
You can't go to court. You
Come
can't.
on,
you can't-
it's already happening. We've seen it with this nonsense where the distracted driving fines have gone from 60 to 300.
300
to 1,000.
Yeah,
But it's okay to have a 300-foot LED billboard aimed right at the highway, and they even say it. Our billboards get the distracted driver, and they look at our ads. Well, that's distracted driving, isn't it? Why is the
irony,
corporate
yeah.
billboards
Please-
okay, but we're
please
not?
define irony.
Yeah, exactly. But guys, let's back up and let's explain what AMPS is. AMPS is administrative monetary penalty. It is a crack in the dam, and if you say, "Oh well, this is no big deal," go to any Legion Hall and ask veterans where they've seen this before. The audacity of this government is unbelievable. You know, I never thought I'd actually see this in my lifetime. Okay, especially from liberals. They're taking away your right to due process of the law, impartial judicial system, the right to face the accuser, the right of evidence against you. Let me give you a quick background, okay? You're driving along, you go through a yellow light. Cop pulls you over and says, You went through a red light. You say, no, I didn't. Cop writes you a ticket and says, take it to court. You take that ticket, you go to court, you ask for a court date to be before a judge. Now, you know what a court is, right? That institution that was created, an impartial institution to protect the people from the government.
Where you defend yourself against charges.
Exactly. They are trained in law. They're impartial, the judges. Okay? You have the right to the evidence of the officer. You have the right to face your accuser. You have the right to go to court and challenge that officer. Okay? And then the judge renders a decision. And then you have the right to appeal if you don't like it. Now, under AMPS, where do you hear this? You go through a yellow light. Cops pulls you over and says, Bob, you went through a red light. You say, no, I didn't. Cop says, tough shit. Yeah, you did. Sorry about my language.
No, that's fine.
Reality of
It's
it.
freedom
Too bad.
of speech.
It's anywhere, right?
I encourage
Tough
people
shite.
to
You went through it.
push that too.
And you say, I want to go to court. So the cop says you can't. All you can do is now go to Silly Hall, where a municipal employee who's probably had training in an afternoon with, some sandwiches.
That would be a bureaucrat who is
chips
paid
and stuff, right?
Which is part of the
bureaucrat.
system.
And I think it's important to mention that the people who you will be appealing that to, not only are they bureaucrats who are, they're not impartial, because they're actually
Paid by the city.
who
Which
is
is
the
conflict of
benefactor
interest.
Bingo!
of your fine.
No evidence, no impartiality, nothing. So you're going to go in there to room A, where Bob is going to sit down with you and go, you can say, I didn't do it.
And what kind of the training Bob has?
Well, one afternoon,
That remains to be
sandwiches.
seen, and frankly, it's not germane to the habeas corpus issue. You have the right to face your accuser, and in our judicial system, one of the basic tenets is in front of an impartial body.
Not anymore.
That's a judge, or at least
The justice of peace.
at least a JP, and that's being denied to Ontarians.
It's just denied. It's being eroded. So you go there and you say, I'm innocent. Bob says,
Well, it's
Bob says, no,
it's beyond
you,
eroded.
no,
It's
you, no,
being flat out denied.
yeah, Bob says, no, you're guilty. You say, no, I wasn't. No, you're guilty. But here's your
You're
fine,
a good
$100.
guy.
So
why
you're
give
going to
it
go to the appeals guy, which is Nick next door, in the other room. So you sit down in front of Nick and you say your story. I'm innocent. Nick says, you're not innocent because the new system says you're guilty and you're going to like it. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce your fine. Big deal. The problem is this. You're still going to get your demerit points. You're still going to get your conviction registered on your driving record. And are you ready for this one? Your insurance is going to go up every time because it's a registered conviction. Now, here's the kicker, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say that the Premier and the Attorney General have not been telling you the truth. They have not been honest with you. They said that you cannot go to jail. Well, I'm about to show you that you can.
There
In
is
fact,
a
I
chain
got
of
a case.
events.
There's a case coming
Absolutely.
up next month where that's possible. When you get a number of tickets, right, and you get demerit points, remember, you can't appeal these or you can't fight them. You will be convicted. Your license will be suspended. If you drive under suspension, it's okay for the Premier to lie and break the law, but if you drive under suspension and you get caught more than 3 times, you're going to go to jail. So they're not telling you the truth. You will go to jail, you will lose your license. Look at in California. California now has to change their system because there's 4 million people?
Well, California, as you and I, actually, you brought it to my attention, the LA Times item, where
4 million
California is
people.
actually addressing
They have to.
something very similar to the AMP situation.
They're getting
Do
out of
they
it.
have the same
And
thing?
they're actually, their lawmakers are actually working
get
not
out of it.
necessarily to repeal it, but to correct an injustice. What they're doing there is saying that, okay, we need to establish the right to face your accuser because they've gone too far. They started this AMPS thing.
There you go.
And now they're
So,
undoing it.
even
And
though-
we're following that path without looking at the result, which is that people are denied the due process. And in Canada, due process is a big goddamn deal.
Here's an
It is.
example with the parking. Everybody says, "Oh, well, big deal parking tickets." I got a case
It's
right
not
now.
just parking tickets.
I got a case.
Now
that I
it's
have to
distracted
take-
driving
No,
where
but
they've
Paul,
just
Paul,
jacked up the
Paul,
fines.
yeah.
Now it's speeding where
But-
they've just reduced limits so they can give you some more
What
tickets
is
for
that?
that.
What is the agenda?
Hold on,
Why
hold on.
they're
Let me give you
To
an
make
example.
money. Does
No.
it follow the dollar?
It's
It's
thievery.
plain and simple.
Thievery. The province can squander billions of dollars. Nobody goes to jail. So now they change everything around to take more money from us. But let me give you an example
John and I have
why the
spoken-
parking is the crack in the wall. I got a case, okay, Richmond Hill. there's a law that says you have to park 3 meters from a fire hydrant.
That's correct.
So my guy got a ticket. It's like $150, $200 ticket.
He's guilty under AMPS.
And the guy says, I was past the 3 meters. And the guy says, no, you weren't. And the guy says, yes, I was. He
I
says,
brought my tape
I don't
measure,
care
I got
what
my
you
camera,
say.
it doesn't
You're
matter."
guilty under AMPS and you can't fight it. So imagine this now going to tickets. And it's not just tickets, okay? It's provincial offenses. Anglers, tribunals. But here's where it starts its web. The Ontario Trucking Association said if AMPS comes through, they're leaving. There's a numerous trucking company. 10,000 jobs will be lost just from trucking industry alone.
And a
They're
subsidiary
leaving.
like a
The courier
mechanics and
people
these-
said they're going
A month or so ago.
they're going to raise their rates. Like such a huge financial impact is coming. But you think that's where it's going to end? They're going to
it's
spread
like a
it.
domino effect. It can
Right. George
constantly-
Orwell is
Some
spinning
time
in his
ago,
grave.
John and I participated in a press conference sponsored by Randy Hillier, MPP,
Oh yes.
Yeah.
at Queen's Park. And during that press conference, by the way, John, you spoke eloquently and quite passionately, not dissimilarly to how you hear him today.
I believe in what I
he's
say.
a-
Do it
of
or
course
don't
you
do
do.
it.
I gave
But-
him a volume before.
Oh, you had to
What,
turn it down, right?
What Randy Hillier did was he brought with him a book of offenses about that thick, and I don't
Yeah.
remember how many. There were maybe 10,000,
Quite a few.
and he hammered it down on the podium.
The
before he
actual
spoke.
offenses that is
The actual offenses that could and will, and we are seeing revealed now, are beginning to fall under AMPS. And this is where we have such a problem. This is not an issue, and a lot of people have said to me, well, this won't, fly with the Supreme Court. Well, they actually do have a Supreme Court decision in
And
their
plus-
favor.
But
And-
they're abusing it.
John?
And not
And-
only that, why citizen has to
and-
go after the court to
And
prove that?
I'd
Yeah,
love
here.
to finish a statement.
Yeah.
And I don't see anybody spending the $3 million it takes to win a case to the Supreme Court to fight a $100 ticket.
Yeah.
That's the
That is exactly
problem.
my point.
This is what they're doing, and now it's my considered opinion because I've spoken to both MPPs and city councillors about this. And the MPPs on the Conservative and on the NDP side both see the danger in AMPS legislation. The city council, on the other hand, sees the money.
That's all they see.
They don't appear to be, and these are conservative.
More money. More money.
Conservative-minded councillors and New Democrat, announced self-proclaiming New Democrat councillors who have all supported AMPS legislation because they see the money. It's more money to the city.
Some of
They
them-
shut down the night court. They're happy about it. We had a conversation.
No,
with-
that is another thing. Yeah.
well, John and I had a conversation with a counselor. I've had
Oh, yeah.
other
I
conversations.
wouldn't call it a conversation, but
No, it wasn't. It was actually rather argumentative, and it was
it showed his true colors, didn't it?
it was really quite something to hear because I've spoken to again. We got Hillier's on side, McLaren's on side. I ran into Vic Fideli. He has already heard from paralegals in North Bay, and has agreed with them, and he's already published material in opposition to AMPS. So we've got the PCs on side. In theory, I have some NDPs that I've spoken to who also think that there's something wrong with this legislation as it stands today.
Well, I don't.
But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because the Liberals have a majority, they're going to push it through.
Of course.
And only City Council could stop it by saying this is the wrong way to raise money. But I've spoken to NDP types, and I've spoken to PC types, and I've spoken to to Liberal types on City Council.
All
They
of them.
all support AMPS legislation because the money goes into city coffers. It's at the expense of habeas corpus. On the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta,
yeah.
we're giving away the basic tenets of
Of
our
our
justice
free
system
system.
for a couple of
Yeah.
bucks. It's the wrong way to go about
just
it.
The scenario that you described earlier with going to Bob and then from this kiosk, it just reminds me of going to car dealership,
Worse.
I think they got it. They don't have any foresight for the consequences of their action over the longer period of time.
Well, cui bono. They want the money.
And here's the argument too. The province is saying, well, it's costing a lot of money in the courts. Well, first of all, not really. Second, you've continuously whittled down and strangled the access to justice. Thirdly, it's the right. I mean, and I used this example in one other interview. I says, well, if that's the case, then it's costing us too much money to run the provincial legislature. Let's just get rid
shut
of
them
them.
down.
We
Yeah,
don't
shut 'em
need,
down.
actually, we do not need provincial governments in Canada. They are relevant and they are redundant. I actually developed a system where it was based on the city-state.
You got rid of Section 92 of the Constitution.
Sorry,
Act?
dude.
Well done, sir.
You have a
if
federal government.
they do that, why don't we?
Well,
No, I
federal
mean, that's
government.
why- but this is the problem.
We don't
is that
need a
John is
provincial
making
government.
This observation, and it should be ridiculous, but it's not, because that's what they're doing.
The money is there. Like, are you kidding me? You squandered billions of dollars on corrupt deals, on gas plants, on helicopters, on this and this
Everything.
and yet you don't have money to sustain the
deleted
fundamental
emails.
foundations of our so-called democratic system, the right to due process. Give me a break.
I mean, when it comes to the social services, they say always crying there is no money, but always there is plenty of
The
money.
most discouraging.
Let me ask you something.
The most discouraging thing in this for me is that people, when I try to explain to them, person to person, I'm talking about luncheons, dinner parties, private conversations, and I try to explain what's going on with AMPS and what I'm working on, because people will say, Paul, what are you up to? And that's it. They don't actually understand, and then you explain to them what's going on, and they say, no, they're not doing that. Yeah, they
But they
actually
are.
are. They
Yeah.
actually are doing this. They're taking your right to face your accuser away,
It's like-
and it is a wedge issue, and it is a big damn problem, and we're not being...
That government should be removed from office. But here's the thing. Why is it that the government never has money for programs that are fundamentally important to the existence of our civilization, yet whenever they screw up a deal, magically they have $1 billion to pay off these contractors? How is that possible?
Well, just before we start the show, we were talking about the latest news about those lights. I mean,
the lights.
the city doesn't have the money for anything.
Well,
but has
that
the
money's
money.
already spent.
No,
I went out
under-
last night.
Listen, I don't buy that argument because it's already spent. It's like, already I go to court and say, the guy is killed. I killed the guy.
It's
Already
not.
he's
That's
dead.
that's not even remotely analogous. I went out last night because I live right near the Prince Edward Viaduct, the Blue River Viaduct.
The point is the
They're
money.
testing the lights.
Always
They're kinda pretty.
even in federal level. Always there is a money for the security, but there is no money for the housing.
Well, there's also money for corporation tax breaks that never create jobs.
I mean, you can go municipal,
Well, you
provincial,
and everybody else who knows me knows where I stand on these things. They know that I opposed the Prince Edward Blue River Viaduct Luminous Veil thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Last night I went out while they were testing the lights. I spoke to the architect, lovely guy, and very proud of his work. He referred to it as a harp played by the wind in color.
Well, very nice.
It was eloquent, and it is really quite something to see. The money's already gone. That's a battle I'm not going to
brought the issue.
We fought and lost that one. It's over.
The issue is not listen. Even the same bridge, when Mel Lastman was there, they spent millions of dollars to put those those fences.
Well, that was the same fence that has now become this dystopian nightmare.
I would
that
say
at
the
least
same.
has some lights
I would
on
say
it.
the same thing. Then I said then. I mean, if someone wants to kill himself, is just walk away 3 minutes further. He can jump off the other bridge.
I appreciate that perspective because
yeah.
that's the perspective that I took into it. However, I have spoken to a lot of people who have said, Paul, this place really was a magnet for suicide. And this has prevented those suicides. I don't know if those people have killed themselves or gone to get therapy. I think for the money you spent, you could have a psychiatrist right there in the middle of the bridge full time.
Exactly my point. Or security guard for that matter.
Guys, again, you're picking your nickels and dimes with all due respect.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Of
about
course.
the Pan Scam games.
Oh my God.
That is another thing.
Now,
Yeah.
we built all these
T-shirts, water
Who
on
cares?
the
Forget
sides.
those. So
I
what?
didn't see that diamond on the road.
I didn't
officer.
either. What diamond? But let's talk about all these buildings that they've built and everything. Just like Scam Dome, okay? Taxpayers paid $675 million. John Tory, through the CEO of Rogers, steals it from the taxpayers. You got a problem with that, Tory? Sue me, right? Steals it from the taxpayers for $25 million. Why is it that we spend taxpayer dollars to build these big mammoth buildings and stuff and then sell them off for nothing. How about this? Next time somebody wants a sports dome or some kind of sports facility, not one dime of taxpayers' dollars. These buildings now that they've built for the Pan Am Games, I sure as hell hope they stay in the public purse.
No,
because if they
won't.
sell them off to their developer buddies for like pennies on the dollars, somebody has to go to jail.
You remember the Sky Dome?
Yeah, that's why we call it Scam Dome.
Yeah.
Right?
But you remember even in Montreal in the 70s
Oh my
Olympic,
God, they were paying for the Big O until about
But I
5
asked
years
John
ago.
Tory.
Vancouver, just 2 years ago.
But I asked John Tory during the elections, which he refused to respond. Mr. Tory, you talk about that you're concerned about fiscal responsibility and the taxpayers' dollars. Were you willing to get Rogers to write a check back for $650 million from the money that they stole from the taxpayers?
Oh, it was a deal.
Oh, right. And where were all the brain-dead counselors
legally.
when this went down? Where are they now with the hundreds of millions of dollars of scandals? Where are they?
I'm going to steal.
But then again, where's the voters to speak up?
I'm going to steal from you on this.
Yeah, go nuts.
Let's have a Cassandra moment. I want to talk
Cassandra
about
moment.
what's coming forward.
It's Oracle moments now.
Oh, pardon me. You've rephrased.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm a little slow in the uptake here.
I'll send you a memo.
Well, John has been referring to some moments that
Cassandra
he and I
moments,
Yes.
remember
both have-
we warned about it and now it's coming.
You know that Toronto is going to have a bid for the 2024
God,
Olympics.
no.
We will not get the 2024 games, but we'll spend
Thank
a couple.
you.
But we'll spend a couple of $100 million bidding
to
for it.
to chase them.
You
Yeah.
know they're going to make noise about bidding for the 2026 World Cup of Soccer. We'd have
No
to build
thanks.
3 soccer stadiums, and we won't get those
No
either.
thanks.
And we won't actually bid on those. We'll just make noise. You know what we are going to get, in my worst fears realized?
Umbrellas at the waterfront for
2025
$20,000?
World's Fair, Expo 2025. I can virtually guarantee you that this council is going to succeed in getting Expo 25, and we are going to spend billions, plural, on hosting Expo 2025. And they're going to talk about the infrastructure, and they're going to talk about all the wonderful things. I mean, it's a bloody absurd. They're taking down a piece of the Gardner, one of the few pieces of infrastructure that the city still owns, with a 40-year deficit. It's akin to when I nagged about the fact that we should be putting our hydro lines underground. It's like saying, no, we can't afford to put the hydro lines underground, but let's just tear down the ones that we have anyway. We'll run extension cords to people's homes.
They're making job for themselves.
They are absolutely. This is graft. I'll fall short of calling it corruption because I can't prove that, and I don't want to be on
Simple.
record
Conduct
saying.
an inquiry.
Well,
You know what?
I don't
Too
have
bad.
the budget
It is
for that.
corruption.
Listen, you said
The fact
inquiry.
of the matter is-
just as a side note, when you said inquiry,
I
you
just
thought-
want to be on record saying that I deeply fear that this city is going to bid for and get the 2025 World's Fair. We're not ready for it. We can't
Noted
afford it. It's
online.
not gonna help
Noted
us.
is on
Maybe
camera.
then we'll get a foreign government to build the real subway for us.
And what on
Not
the
gonna
side
happen. It'll be an underwater
a
Ferris
side
wheel.
note on the a side note on the inquiry, like this Senate affair, like spending. They spent what, 24
$23 million for a money.
What's his name? Herb what?
for 1 million.
What's the Liberal guy's name? Yeah, we don't get that one published a lot because
No, we don't.
he's a Liberal guy. The Liberal guy, let's not mention the Conservative guy because he gets enough press. What's the Liberal guy's name?
Doesn't matter. All of them are the same. All of them belong to the
but
same.
one of them, actually, they're not both the same or they're not all the same. One of them gets all of the press,
Yeah.
and the other guy, Mark.
Yeah, I know some liberal.
Yeah, so I don't know because
That shows that we
it
don't
never gets
remember the name.
anybody
I know. Well,
Never
there you
gets
go.
any attention.
Biased, corrupt
Yeah.
media.
And the other
No,
guy, the
they
Conservative
put-
guy whose name
no,
I'd rather we didn't mention.
No,
didn't cost taxpayers a dime.
No,
The other one did.
For me, it's not individual. For me, the action. Spending $24 million to find out $1 million is
Oh,
being. I mean, the whole. It reminds me
We
of.
need better oversight on
Listen,
Senate.
well, we had it with the Mulroney 2-3 times with the
did.
Airbus
That's
affair. Another
Come
20
on,
million.
come on, right here in
That's
Ontario.
Jeez.
Kathleen Wynne spent $7-8 million on her liberal buddy consultants
Or
to
Paul
tell us
Martin
how
giving
to
himself-
steal hydro. Really?
Paul Martin gave himself grants and contracts
Oh, yeah.
with Canadian
No,
steamships.
I mean the whole the system, as you said, the city hall has to need to revamp itself
It
to a
does.
something that is not. Apparently, this system doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
So the whole
During the
system
time that
has
Paul
to
Martin
be.
was finance minister, Canadian steamship lines received $640 million in grants and contracts from the federal government.
Which was subsidiary of different country
Now-
with
Oh,
a different
okay.
flag.
No, yeah, he was flagging himself out of the Bahamas.
Yeah.
But that's flags of convenience, I believe, is the title.
Yeah,
for that.
not to pay taxes.
But his company, when he owned it, well, he was finance minister, not when he signed the thing off to his son and pretended not to know. Well, he was finance minister, $640 million in grants and contracts from the federal government. Now, to be fair, during Mulroney's period as prime minister, Canada Steamship Lines did receive 68 million in grants and contracts. Now, somewhere between Mulroney's period as prime minister, 68 million, and as finance
on
minister,
to-
640 million when he became finance minister.
Maybe
And
it
then
was
as prime minister, he
inflation.
had nothing to do with it.
Maybe
Yeah,
it
but
was
guys, all we're
inflation.
doing is we're
That's quite a
spouting
raise,
what
isn't it?
happened and what
Okay.
isn't.
That's
What
what
are we
we
going to do
That's
about
a
it?
tenfold
Okay,
raise.
let's allocate on that. What are the suggestions? How they?
Well,
let's start with municipal. What do you want to do?
Well, I'm kind of baffled of what's happened to Torontonians and Canadians in general.
Okay, what do you want to
Because
do?
it
What
seems
is the
that nobody
suggestion?
wants to stand up for their rights. Nobody wants to fix the problems. Everyone buries their heads in the sand. And when people come out, and I mean, not necessarily me, okay, but when there's a lot of good people that run for office, but because you see there's this delusional aristocracy with this mental illness that they're a royalty of the city, that have got the small little clique and they think they can do whatever they want with their city. They have the corrupt media. And here's the other thing. Because I speak the truth, people say to me, well, you know, you're a bull in a china shop. No one's going to listen to you. Well, if I talk like this and I speak like this, and will you listen to me then because I look like the guy on
If you got $1 million
network
bucks or
news?
$2 million
That's
behind
right.
you, yeah,
Every
we will.
mayor that we've had has been a millionaire. Okay? Maybe
Olivia
it's time
Chow,
to get
John
a mayor.
Tory, Rob
She's
Ford, all
not a mayor.
millionaires.
Maybe it's time that the next
I'm not
mayor of
talking about
Toronto
mayors,
is
I'm talking
not
about
a
the
millionaire.
last three candidates
Yeah.
we had. Olivia
Yeah.
Chow, John
They're
Tory,
all
Rob
connected.
Ford, all millionaires.
All
Fact.
millionaires, okay? Yet there was a lot of mayoral candidates that had good stuff to say. But, I mean, again...
I
like,
thought Dion Renee was
Occam's
fantastic.
razor, ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen.
I-
Occam's razor.
we-
When it comes down to it, who's at fault?
Okay, let me. We
Saturday
are
is
about
the voter.
we are about a few minutes left of the program.
Really?
Yeah, time flies, man. It's not funny. There is, if we want to write a list of the number of the misappropriation,
invite
that
us
all,
both back
we
for
need
that.
a textbook, your friend brought all of the
Randy Hillier.
Yes.
the
I see
Hell
it in
yeah.
the courts every
Good
day.
man.
Our
Let
laws are
me
dis-
allocate last 5 minutes. 5 minutes, are we okay for 5? Yeah. For last 5 minutes, I want to ask you specifically, if you were a mayor or any position that could do anything, what would be your suggestions?
Well, when I'm mayor...
It's
Did you just announce?
good feeling, huh?
Well, listen,
think John
if I run
Papadakis
again,
just announced
if
his
I
intention
run
to run
again,
for
it's
mayor.
certainly not going to be
No,
for
no,
council.
forget
Listen,
about running. I'm saying
I would
tomorrow you are in
massive
City Hall.
Massive changes.
What are those changes?
First of all, I would any money borrowing would cease from any of the chartered banks. It would go directly to the Bank of Canada and borrow that money at zero interest rates.
Okay, that's
That's
good
what
thing
they were
one.
established to do in the first place.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I've been saying that for the last 20 years.
Okay.
I would launch massive investigations into the contracts and goings-ons, what's going on. I would basically call the province up and say, we need a new deal or you're going to see a referendum on the next ballot for secession.
So you bring referendum to the hand of the people. Okay.
Absolutely. Either that or we change. Listen, in 1803, the provincial municipal setup was okay because Toronto was 3 pigs, a couple of Irishmen, and a couple of Englishmen. And that was it. Okay? In 2015, that
And Harold
system...
Ballard.
And Harold Ballard. That system does not work anymore. Okay? We cannot be dictated to by an incompetent, corrupt provincial government that sees the municipalities, which are the engines of the country, and they're just draining our energy.
Okay, focus again on the
Are they the new
So
family
it was
compact?
it was Bank of Canada. It was investigation to stop all of the leaking.
Right? I'd bring in municipal
Okay.
parties.
You put a deal with the province that you
New deal or referendum?
or referendum
Federal government?
and the federal with both level of the government, and then you bring the political party
I would
system.
change the system, municipal parties.
You.
I'm going in a different direction. I'm more focused on infrastructure. This city is in a 40-year infrastructure deficit.
Okay.
If we're not going to invest in infrastructure outside of the core,
Just point format what you do, because we are short in the end of the.
all right, well, we're either going to get infrastructure through the whole GTA or we're looking at de-amalgamation.
Demalgamation.
Again.
I would think that from North York,
Yep.
we'd be looking at a right of petition to the province to de-amalgamate.
Just say this system didn't work.
Sure.
It
hell
doesn't
with
work. We use it as a platform.
No, no, no.
Alan Redway, the former mayor, and I said to him, why didn't you say this during the election? Because I've always said megacity's a failure. I did a paper on this. We need to go back to a borough system like Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, London, England, all went back to a borough system. It does not work.
With that,
It's
we
been,
know
it's been a failure. It's too
we know
bad.
it's not working. If I sit with you, I need a 24 hours program, and quite honestly, then we need that pizza and ice cream. First of all, thank you for coming here, and thank you for bringing all of these issues that it's just mentioned in small pieces of here and there in the media, so people can see and feel that there are passionate people without any expectation of the money or any reward. They are fighting for it.
Pretty sure that John and I actually had the. Oh, the money isn't on.
No, there is no money. There
What
is no
money?
money.
I thought we had a deal with them on.
He thought he's going to get paid for the show.
I just came for the
The
pizza.
pizza and the ice cream. I
yeah.
figure.
It is show the level of
Listen, in
expectation.
September
Okay.
we'll be ramping up the AMPS opposition because that's when the provincial
We're
government.
gonna
There's
need a
going
lot
to be
of
some
support.
surprises coming.
Well,
We're going to need a lot of
I-
support now. I personally, I don't know, John, if you're not prepared to do this, I sure am. If you want to get more involved in the AMPS fight, John and I are doing this together. Paul at paulbell.ca.
Okay. We are going with all of your information at the end of the show when it goes on
course.
YouTube.
I just wanted to be.
and we are going to add
We're
that.
really interested in that.
Thank you very much
Yeah,
for joining us
it's
for
email.
another show of the Voters Echo. I hope
at
you
our friend
continue
now.
watching us, and for the next show, please go to votersecho.com, and you can find very soon the copies of all of our shows
You
that
brought me
was
on with the Liberal
pre-recorded.
Lady one time,
And
giving me a hard time. I figured
please
you deserved
remember, get involved in the electoral process, vote, help a candidate, volunteer, and if it's possible, I encourage you to become a candidate yourselves.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Thanks.